Okay, so welcome everyone to the first Doors of Heritage podcast episode. My name is Sarah, and today we will be discussing one of the most recognizable buildings in Amherstburg's downtown, the Echo Printing Company building. We will discuss the architecture of this building, its past history, and its current purpose. Let's get to discussing the building. Robert and Stephanie, please start us off. What can you tell us about the Echo building? I understand that the building was constructed in 1915. What is the story of the property prior to that?
The Echo Printing Company was built in 1915. The architect was James Carlisle Pennington. This property was part of the military reserve of Fort Malden and was part of the King's Navy Yard for shipbuilding and the commissariat. Civilian development began after 1875. And by 1904, this site was owned by Napoleon A. Cost. The post office and federal building was just to the south, and a residence was to the north.
So the Echo Printing Company purchased the property from Napoleon Cost?
Yes. The Amherstburg Echo had been published in a large building on Ramsey Street since 1874, and it appears that they were looking at establishing a new location in 1904 when they bought the lot on Dalhousie Street, but it wasn't until 1915 that they actually started construction on the new building. The Amherstburg Echo began publication in 1874 by William D. Balfour and John Ode. Both were prominent persons of their time, Balfour being Speaker of the House for the government of the time. The original building was located on Ramsey Street, across from where Dewey's is today. In 1896, Mr. Balfour died, and Arthur W. Marsh joined the Echo as Ode's partner. In 1915, they moved the paper to the new building on Dalhousie Street. His son, John Marsh, joined the paper in 1924 after Ode's death, and John's sister, Helen Marsh, joined in 1941 after their father's death. John and Helen operated the paper for 40 more years until 1981, when they retired and sold the paper to John and Linda James. They sold the paper to the Bose Publishing Company in 1990, and in 2007, Bose no longer needed the building and put it up for sale. From 1915 to 2009, the Amherstburg Echo was published out of this building.
What a story. So the Amherstburg Echo must have been an influential paper in the region.
Yes, it was. The Western Record in 1915 says that this is the best word in newspaperdom as far as county weeklies of this province are concerned. And the Echo is 41 years young and is one of the best county weeklies in Canada. It should be noted as well that the Bell Telephone Company occupied the second floor of the Echo building from 1915 until 1949. This was their business office and I believe where the telephone operators worked from. Subsequently, Bell built a new building on Sandwich Street.
The Echo building certainly was home to influential events in the community and even the nation. Is this building considered architecturally significant?
It most certainly is. The building was designed by architect James Carlisle Pennington of Windsor and is a fine example of classic revival in the Edwardian period. And remember that the building was a factory-type building to accommodate all the presses and the equipment for printing and publishing a newspaper, as well as other products. Pennington was an architect of many other prominent buildings in Amherstburg. A few of these buildings include the Amherstburg Public Library, the Liberty Theater, and the General Amherst High School.
What are the architectural attributes of this building?
As said, the building is in the classical revival genre of the early 20th century. The back of the factory part was built of concrete block. The lower level opens onto the river, and the main level is at the street level. These were the two floors for the printing operation. The top floor was open and used by the Bell Telephone. Of note are the large windows that provided good natural light for the factory and telephone operations. The place was to have an elevator, but unfortunately it was never installed. The front of the building was bricked with fine detail around the large windows and decorative brick panels below the windows. The front also boasted a beautiful stone surround for the door and other stone decoration inserted into the brick. Above the door was a wrought iron decorative balcony, and the facade was topped by a beautiful pressed metal cornice with dentils. The door is above sidewalk level, so there was a brick and cement stairs and porch leading up to the front door. This was in the style appropriate with low brick walls and stone caps. In 1995, renovations, mainly to the interior, also saw the original porch and steps removed and replaced with the limestone steps we see now. A few years ago, we saw the unfortunate removal of the beautiful classical revival pressed metal cornice, which was replaced by copper-colored vertical metal siding. But most recently, the first floor has been redone for Caffeine and Company, a bake shop and coffee shop. The interior is beautiful, and the exterior has been very sensitively updated with new custom windows and a new cornice that mimics the original.
Thank you, Robert and Stephanie, for all this wonderful information. Every time I now pass this building, I'll remember all the interesting history you've provided us today. And on that note, I'd like to welcome the current occupant of Caffeine and Company, Meg Boshin. The company is owned by Megan Boshin and Mary Hearn. Caffeine and Company opened on August 15th of 2018. This boutique-style scratch bakery and coffee shop is located in the heart of beautiful downtown Amherstburg. Together, Meg and Mary formed an unstoppable collaboration of entrepreneurialism, culinary obsession, and aesthetic finery when Caffeine and Company was born. Hard to rival the globe over. A must-visit and joyful experience for little cookie monsters and world travelers alike. Serving specialty coffee, fresh-baked pastries, and lovely savory options daily. Meg, welcome, and tell us a bit of the history of your business from startup to the journey that you've traveled in this beautiful space.
Well, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure, and I'm delighted to learn about this history. I didn't even know all of these fabulous details, so that makes me even more excited to be in that building because we did think it was special. I always loved that building, and in fact, my husband and I had almost purchased it 10 years prior because I just was in love with it, and it wasn't for a bakery or anything. I just said, I have to do something in this building. So it didn't work out at the time. We didn't end up buying it then, but 10 years later, it came up into my life again when my friend Mary and I, we realized Amherstburg desperately needed this, what is known to be a third place. It's not work, it's not home, but it's your place to go and hang out. And we wanted it, we needed it. So we're like, okay, it's our civic duty. We are going to embark on this. And I had done it before. So I had owned a bakery cafe at the outlet mall named Cafe Mondo about 10 years before that. So I had some experience. And so we went for it. And we weren't supposed to be in the Echo building. We had signed a lease down at the new Queen Charlotte building, and in fact had started renovations already. We had money into it when it turned out that they wouldn't have enough power for the business, for what we needed for our business. They had some issues with their power. And so we were able to get out of that lease, and it just happened to be that the Echo building had just gone into new ownership and was going to be saved instead of torn down. If you guys remember, they wanted to put condos there. So this was exciting for us. It was, we knew the people that bought it, which are fantastic landlords. And together we had so much fun bringing Echo back to life, I guess you could say. So it's pretty, we're excited to be there. And even more so now that I know all this history.
That's a wonderful journey. So thanks for sharing that with us, Meg. So what attracted you to locating your business in the historical space as opposed to other areas? And how does knowing more about the history of the building encourage or challenge you?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, we knew, and my background is interior design. I have a little bit of architectural study too from my school days. So I always love historical spaces. I love I love the feel of that rather than a new space. The details that we were able to work with and bring back to life, like the windows were just amazing. Like the front door. I mean, the front door for me is everything. So it does have that original stone that we were just talking about, and the old Echo stone piece above it still. And the landlords were so gracious when we were working on the renovations to also appreciate those details and wanting to bring them also back to life on the outside of the building. So it just there couldn't be a better space for the vision I had always had. And having had a cafe in a plaza before, like in a mall setting at the outlet mall, I just knew it was not the vibe that really worked for me. So there was really no other space for us. And it was exciting and really a great opportunity for us to be there. Knowing the history, it just actually makes me really a lot more excited. It wouldn't be a challenge. I think we're up to the challenge of like honoring that history and continuing it and keeping it going. Yeah, it's exciting.
That is exciting. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about these difficult times of the pandemic and the business shutdowns. And just wondering, Meg, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience with the local residents, the business community, the Heritage Committee, the Chamber of Commerce, the Town Council, or anyone else you'd like to mention.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, of course, yeah, the pandemic was a shock for all of us. I think it was disappointing in that downtown, that core of Amherstburg just finally came back to life. It was booming the past 2 years. Like since we opened our doors 2018, it was like a new world. I think we can all agree, if we're from Amherstburg, that it just saw a whole new life. And so the pandemic was like, what? We have to shut all these doors. And my biggest fear is like, I hope everyone can withstand it because we have such a great thing going. And I see that that's happening. So I'm happy about that. I think personally from our business, it made us really dig deep and do a lot of things we already had in our business plan, just do them a lot faster and get them going, which would include things like a lot more custom orders, a lot more getting our online and social media presence a lot stronger, because we were just so busy out of the gate that we didn't have time, or we didn't really need that stuff. So the slowdown forced us to focus on those things. So it was good for us. We did a little bit of reorg within the people in our business, which we needed. And it was great. Local residents are super duper supportive, obviously, and makes us so happy that they line up out the door before we're even open in the morning. I mean, that's like a business's dream. So the business community, I guess I could say everyone is really out for one another. I found through the pandemic that we just want to see everybody, I want to say, thrive through this. And I hate to say that, it's more so survive, and let's thrive when we come out of it. But I do think we are thriving through it, which is pretty awesome for the downtown. I mean, I love that the Heritage Committee is honoring this building because, like I said, I'm in it and I didn't even know this information. So it's awesome. Town Council, and I'm sure the Chamber, they're responsible for the Open Streets initiative that happened last year, which was a huge success. I know a lot of people want to see a few changes, but I guess that's just the way it works. You can't expect things to be perfect on your first go. We all know that. So I think everyone's totally dedicated. I think they did an amazing job, their efforts to do that. It blew my mind watching all the people working on a Friday afternoon to shut it down and bring in the gates and all. It was just moving all the planters. Like, when you own a business, you realize how much work that is and how much like manpower and money that it takes. And I think, I think it's a good thing. I think it's great for our town on so many levels, not just now, but moving forward. It's like a thing that happened for the pandemic, but I think we'll carry it forward, and it's just what makes Amherstburg special and a destination.
I love that, what you said there, Meg, about a destination. And that's very encouraging to hear your perspective. Not surprising, but encouraging just the same. So back to the building now. Are there any structural features or historical background of your facility in particular that you really feel add to the overall customer experience in your business?
Definitely. The first thing about that space was the windows. When you're inside, I think it's unique that we're a standalone building too. So we have windows on both sides and the front. And even just to compare it to the original space we thought we were going to be in, it was just a big corridor because we were like just our windows in the front, windows in the back, and then nothing on the side. So the light that comes into our space is just amazing. And the high ceilings that we have, I know for some people it was a real drawback that we had the stairs that you had to climb to get into it, and we do whatever we can to accommodate our customers. We will, if they call us, we'll bring food down for them. We even deliver now. Like that's another thing we adapted through the pandemic, is that like I'm driving around delivering things all over Essex County. So we do our best to accommodate. And I mean, I've seen people drag themselves up the stairs because they want to come into Caffeine & Co. so bad. But I love that look, and I think people love it. Like there's been so many pictures taken on those stairs. With social media, we know it's all like the selfies are on those stairs. From the brick, we had fun recreating in the front, like some details we did. It's just a great space, and the cornice, like we mentioned. So it just really, we couldn't have asked for a better space.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely a beautiful building and, a great location. And have you seen any benefits to your building from being located in the historical district of the town?
Oh my gosh, 100%. And we wonder, like we ask ourselves every day, had we opened down the street and it was just a block away and in that new Queen Charlotte building, would we be what we are today? Because we see what we have in that beautiful little spot there. It really is everything. Yeah, being there, and because people come for that. We've got Fort Malden at the end and all the other beautiful things around that are historical. It's hugely benefited our business to be a part of that district. I couldn't imagine us being anywhere else. It wouldn't be the same. And I owned a cafe before, realizing how important location is, because it was a great concept similar to Caffeine & Co., but it never saw the business that Caffeine & Co. sees. So we do attribute a lot of that to our success, our location there.
Amazing. And is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about your unique business?
Well, let's see, what can I share? Well, I think what surprises a lot of people is that we are a scratch bakery. So we do make everything in our little bakery, and our bakers are there, 3, 4, 5 a.m. Baking, as our door says, baking their buns off, just making it all from scratch. And that I think has contributed to the experience that people feel they just keep coming back for the things that we make, because they're always different, because it's always unique and always delicious, of course. But the other cool thing, and it's fitting for this week with International Women's Day, is that we're women owned and we are all women operated, which is a really fun thing to be involved in. And I'm proud to be a part of that as well.
Yes, I love that. And would you like to tell our listeners where they can find your business online and connect with you?
For sure. So the best place is Instagram. That's where we're most visible right now. So it's at caffeine_company. You'll find us on Instagram. We post everything, great photos. You can get a vibe and a feel for the place if you haven't been. And we also post an order form on Google, a Google form on our Instagram that you can click each week with new orders, so you can order ahead. Again, if you don't want to come in, we still do takeout, do delivery occasionally now, not as much now that we're opening up again and we're getting super busy, but we do have those things. So you can see all the products that we are offering, and we're about to officially launch a website that will also have a lot of cool new products and the ability to order online and things like that. So it's good. That's about it right now. And you can always call us on the good old-fashioned telephone.
Okay, Meg. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing everything that you shared about your business. I'm sure that people will be actually anxious to get there now that you're open again, and just appreciate all the information you've provided our listeners today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm just so glad to be on here. So we really appreciate the opportunity to be learning about this and talking with you guys.
Amazing. And so, as Robert and Stephanie had explained previously, John Marsh had a long career with the Amherstburg Echo. In order to preserve this history, we have the Marsh Collection. Today, the Marsh Collection preserves the archival collection related to the Amherstburg Echo. I'd like to introduce reps from the Marsh Collection, Meg and Reiner, who will provide a brief history on how the collection came to be, what the Marsh Collection does, and how residents can access the Marsh Collection. Meg Reiner was born and raised in Amherstburg, Ontario. She graduated from Carleton University with an honors bachelor degree in history and theory of architecture and went to study cultural heritage conservation at Fleming College. Meg has been in the collections coordinator at the Marsh Collection Society since 2016 and also sits on the board of the Bellevue Conservancy. She considers herself very lucky to work in the local history field and welcomes any chance to do some research.
Thank you. This organization was the brainchild of the late John and Helen Marsh, natives of Amherstburg, whose family owned and operated the Amherstburg Echo weekly newspaper for over 80 years. Arthur Marsh, father of John and Helen, grew to manhood in Lambton County, received his early education there and later in the Sarnia High School and Strathroy Collegiate Institute. He then followed the teaching profession for several years in Moore Township. In July 1897, Marsh came to Essex County, where he became associated with the Amherstburg Echo, a well-established weekly newspaper since 1874. From there, he was sent to the Essex Free Press to gain experience in the newspaper business. In May of the following year, Arthur W. Marsh returned to the Echo as half-owner with John Auld. A year later, in 1899, he married an Essex lass named Bessie Hicks. They set up housekeeping in Amherstburg, where their two children, Helen and John Marsh, were born. In 1924, after Auld's death, Arthur Marsh was joined at the Echo by his son, John A., a recent business graduate of McGill University. A year later, the father and son team assumed full control of the newspaper. Helen Marsh, like her father, followed the teaching profession at the Amherstburg Public School. After Arthur W. Marsh's tragic death in 1940 following an automobile accident, Helen joined her brother John A. Marsh at the Echo, from which they both retired in the early 1980s. Both were lifelong members of the community who had imparted their love of local history, as had their late parents. While Arthur W. Marsh was at the helm of the Amherstburg Echo, he had wisely maintained files on historical events in and around Amherstburg and Essex County. This collection, called the Echo Morgue, eventually became the centerpiece of what is known today as the Marsh Historical Collection.
Wow, Meg, that's interesting stuff. Can you take us through the process of how the items of the collection came to be?
John Marsh was one of the key players in the 1938 establishment of Fort Malden National Historic Site. His regular Friday afternoon visits there were always welcome and enlightening. It was during one of his regular visits in 1977 that the fort's photo collection was discussed with staffer Eleanor Geniak, and a new weekly Echo feature entitled Those Were the Days was born. Complete with photos, dates, and descriptions where possible, the column continued in the Echo for over 2 decades. In 1980, a growing friendship between the Marsh siblings and Geniak continued. Valuable time was spent listening to John Marsh's many first-hand tales of his town, Old Amherstburg, and admiring his well-maintained library of local history. This led to pondering what would eventually happen to this important collection. John discussed the matter with his close friend and attorney, Richard D. Thrasher, QC, who also had an interest in the town's history. In fact, his father, DeVere Thrasher, had been another of the key players with John Marsh in the establishment of Fort Malden.
And can you tell us a bit about the main objectives that the Society tries to achieve?
Subsequently, in 1983, the Marsh Collection Society was founded as a registered, nonprofit, charitable organization. The objects of the Society are to encourage research into the history and development of the Lower Detroit River, the town of Amherstburg and areas adjacent thereto, to collect and preserve all articles of interest relating to such history and development, and to provide a place to house, display, conserve, restore, conduct research into, and to otherwise work upon the articles of such collection for their continued care or well-being, and to collect monies by way of donations or otherwise, to accept gifts, grants, legacies, devises, and bequests, and to hold, invest, expend, or deal with the same in furtherance of the objects of the corporation. It was intended that a local history archives and resource center to house the family's historical collection would, at some future date, be physically established in Amherstburg. But at John Marsh's insistence, that would not happen until after his demise. At the same time, the Arthur W. Marsh Memorial Fund was established. This scholarship is intended for a grade 12 student of General Amherst High School who would be attending the University of Windsor and pursuing a course in honors history. In 1989, the Essex County Historical Society presented the Reverend Ernest J. Lajeunesse Award to John A. Marsh for distinguished achievement in local history. Helen Marsh died in March 1986. John Marsh's death occurred in February 1993. On October 12, 1994, Jennifer McLeod and Eleanor Geniak officially opened the Marsh Collection Society in a small office at 235 Dalhousie Street in downtown Amherstburg. Together, they organized a small collection from the Marsh estate, about 2 shelves of books and half a filing cabinet of old newspaper clippings, photos, and other memorabilia. Artifacts and information began to arrive on a regular basis. 3 years later, it had doubled in size, both in floor space and holdings. On June 1st, 2017, the Marsh Historical Collection was moved to 80 Richmond Street in Amherstburg, where it opened to the public a few days later. The facility contains a large collection of photos, books, documents, postcards, artifacts, and other items relating to the area. An extensive reference library boasts several shelves of publications, old and new, on a wide range of local history subjects, including genealogy, church records, marine and military, prohibition, railway, indigenous and Black histories, and so much more.
Thanks, Meg. Can you explain to us how the Marsh Collection is funded? It seems like an important piece of history that would require funding.
The Marsh Collection is privately funded through the careful management of Marsh investments and donations from various foundations and the public.
And if someone was looking to make a donation to the Marsh Collection, how could they go about doing that?
We accept in-person donations and can issue tax receipts for any amount over $10. Donations can also be made online using our website through the Canada Helps platform.
This is such an amazing resource for our town and surrounding area. Thank you so much, Meg, for sharing with us the history of the Marsh Collection.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for joining us here today, Meg and Meg. And thank you to our listeners for joining us as well. I hope you've enjoyed learning the history of the Echo building. And thank you to our guests for providing this interesting information on the building. I hope you have enjoyed walking through the doors of heritage with us. Until next time.